Former New York governor and presidential candidate George Pataki announcing his 2016 endorsement last night at the New York State Republican Gala at Manhattan's Grand Hyatt Hotel.
I thought about it long and hard, and I've decided I'm going to endorse Governor John Kasich for president. Two things. First of all, the Republicans have to win. I do not believe Hillary Clinton is fit to be president of the United States. John Kasich is the candidate who doesn't just beat Hillary Clinton, he trounces her, and will help us to regain Washington. And then the second thing, Greta, is once we win, you have to be able to govern. Our country is divided, not because of the people, but because of the politicians. And John Kasich has a history of bringing people together and governing successfully.
And look who's here. Former New York Governor George Pataki joins us right now. Thank you for getting up.
Good morning, Dagan.
How was the dinner last night?
It was exciting.
What was the reception for the pizza? I eat pizza with a fork, John Kasich, which he made fun of last night.
He had a very good reception. It went extremely well, I think, from his standpoint.
What about Ted Cruz? There was some reports from our guys in the room that people were kind of eating and not paying attention to him last night.
Well, this is New York, you know, and it's hard to keep a crowd's attention. But I think John Kasich did very well. I think Donald Trump did what he does. He bragged about himself the whole time. I built this building, I built that building, and I don't think that went over particularly well.
Yeah, but does it? But see, again, that's why, and I'll argue that's why he resonates with people, because it doesn't sound like your typical stump speech.
It doesn't
he's talking about, this is what I've done, here are my accomplishments.
It's not your typical stump speech, but it's your typical Donald Trump. I am great. Anything I think at the moment is the most brilliant thing the American people have ever heard. This is not a guy who understands the issues, who understands the nuances of policy, and I'm all for political incorrectness, but I'm not for stupidity when it comes to policy. And that's constantly what Trump is spewing.
But he has figured out how to connect with a big chunk of the Republican voters.
Absolutely. The American people are angry at Washington, and they're angry at politicians, and I totally understand that. I share that anger. Washington does not act in the people's interest. It acts in its self-interest.
Right, well, let me ask you,
Trump is not the solution. John Kasich is.
But let me ask you this then, because if John Kasich is in this race, he is looking toward the convention, because it's mathematically impossible for him to get to 1237 in the delegate count. But then that goes to, if you're counting on multiple votes at a convention and have the delegates elect him as the nominee, then that goes right to the point that people are mad at the system and mad at the Republican leadership, whether it's at state or at the national level.
Conventions are a horrible idea. They produce candidates like Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt and Dwight Eisenhower. We need to have primaries where we nominate somebody who's unelectable in November. One of the things in the clip you just saw is John Kasich will trounce Hillary Clinton. He will. It's not just about getting the nomination. It doesn't matter if you don't win the election. You can't change Washington. John Kasich can win, will win, and will change Washington.
I got to ask you about the primary system, because I harp on this a lot. Last night at the Democratic debate, who was getting all the cheers? It was Bernie Sanders with laugh lines, with you know, explosive points that would never win in a national election, but he had that crowd. And we see that with Donald Trump, saying things that, frankly, I don't think will win the national election, but really get that base riled up. How do you change this process so both parties could nominate people who actually have to win the middle, have to work together to make something happen?
I think that's a critical question. And what I said is the American people aren't divided. The political class has divided for their own self-interest. We have to get more people to participating in the primaries. You know, you look at the vote totals, and as a percentage of eligible voters, most stay home. And what I'm urging Republicans in New York is don't stay home. Don't just look at the TV and get angry. Come out, support a candidate who can unite Americans and win, and that's John Kasich.
Well, before you...
By the way, Dagan, I have to say one thing. I'm inspired by the unlimited free French fries at McDonald's. I mean, if I had thought of that when I was running for president, I might still be in the race.
It's just an idea, I think, from one franchisee in Missouri. But,
good idea.
But I want to ask you, before you endorsed Kasich, that you endorsed Marco Rubio, who, despite suspending his campaign, wants to keep every delegate. He won while running for president. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he should. Those delegates voted for Senator Rubio. And I believe that at this point, certainly on the first ballot, they are committed to the candidate that they ran supporting. So I don't think conventions are a bad thing. You know, you hear the term brokered. There aren't going to be any brokers. It's going to be chaos where every delegate is free to decide who they believe is the best candidate. I don't think that's an inherently bad process.
So we say it's not what you say that matters, it's what people hear. And so there's a big sentiment out there that this is no longer about the people electing the candidate. This is about the establishment deciding. How do you respond to that when we're saying the people have voted, the people have decided, and we're now going to decide behind the scenes?
I think you're absolutely right. It is about the establishment deciding in the Democratic side. I mean, look at the superdelegates. Bernie Sanders has won 8 out of the last 9 primaries, and yet Hillary gets all the delegates because they have a rigged system. The convention delegates are pledged to support the candidate that won those votes at the primary, but only on the first ballot. And then they can vote for the person they think is best. I don't think it's a bad thing to have people have the freedom to say, I think this is the best candidate, not just for the party, but for the country.
Real quickly, Kasich money. How's his money? His fundraising?
I don't know the status of his fundraising, but I do believe that he's going to have the resources. I know he'll have the resources to continue. He's in the whole way. There's a path to victory for him. It's a narrow path for sure, but he can win it. And if he gets the nomination, he's going to be the president of the United States, and he's going to be, for the first time in a while, a very good president of the United States.
One more thing, completely off the political scene, the presidential race.
I'm a Jets fan.
Governor, you are good. So, yeah, I'm not a Giants fan.
I'm sorry, Governor. I am too. It's been rough.
No, you stand with your team.
It's kind of like being a Republican in New York. You get used to not winning.
Thank you. Well, I want to bring up that Governor Andrew Cuomo recently signed an MMA bill into law, officially legalizing the sport that you banned back in 1997.
It was the right decision. When I banned it, it was the right decision because it was a brutal sport. There was no regulatory climate. There were no health checks and medical standards, and it was something where there was enormous risk, not just that obviously it's a violent sport, but an enormous risk of serious injury and death to the performers.
But now it's
Since that time, states have put in place regulatory policies, checks so that you make sure someone is healthy before they get into the arena. And I think now it's become a major sport.
So you're on board with this?
I think it was the right decision to ban it then, and I think it's the right decision to legalize it now.
Come back soon.
I'd be happy.
I'll work on my Southern accent.
Yeah, I know. I don't want you to lose the accent, David.
Thank you so much.